tonight. Alright! We're gonna have a TV party, alright! Tonight! We've got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight! Alright! We'll pass out on the couch. Alright! Tonight! We've got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't wanna know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows.
And tonight, our favorite show is Luke Cage, Season 2, brought to you by the good people at Marvel Entertainment, a subsidiary of the Disney Corporation, the people who own your childhood. With me tonight to review Luke Cage, of course, I am your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. Ladies and gentlemen, hail to the chief. It's the Tuesday Night Delight, the host of Damn You Hollywood. Critics, cover your butts. It's Robert Winfrey.
Okay, wait a minute. The two things. One, I don't think it's necessary to say a subsidiary of Disney. That's just understood about everything at this point.
Yes.
Second, why are critics covering their butts?
Because you're going to give it to them right in the butt, Winfrey. That's what we do every week on Damn You Hollywood. You give it to the critics.
Your implications about my sexual orientation are misplaced badly.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was saying a knuckle sandwich.
Don't assume his pronouns.
In the butt. Speaking of
don't
butt.
Don't get me started on pronouns. We'll be here for 20 minutes on a non-related topic.
Yeah, please don't get Asperger's McGee started. Speaking of
See, that one works because the way you pronounced Asperger's actually plays into what you were talking about and is to the best of my knowledge, mostly accurate diagnosis.
And that chuckling you hear is our third chair on the Source Material podcast and the host of the Screaming Boy podcast in his own right. Ladies and gentlemen, hail to the chief. It's Ronnie Adams. How do you do, sir?
Did you forget my name?
Damn it! Can't you just go with it that I took a dramatic pause?
No, because you didn't. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I had literally had to go through there was like a Rolodex spinning in my brain going, who the fuck am I talking to again? Oh, that's right, Ronnie.
It's not literally splashed across the Skype call or anything.
No, I couldn't just read my computer screen. I had to remember. Oh God, don't get old, fellas. All right,
I'm well.
Yeah, I didn't plan to be alive at this point, so you know.
Oh my lord!
All right, so we are here to review.
All right, that's enough of that.
We are here to review Luke Cage Season 2, brought to you by the good people at Netflix as well. I should mention them. And it came out a few weeks ago. We're getting around to it now because there was nothing in the movies last week worth reviewing. Maybe Sicario, but that's a conversation for another day. In any case,
Uncle Drew.
All right, we're going to leave Ronnie Adams off the call right now. Thanks, Ronnie, for calling in.
No.
Anyway. So, the format of the show has sort of evolved since I started doing these TV show reviews. We're not doing episode-by-episode breakdowns anymore. Those take 12 years, and I get bored midway through the show. We're going to talk themes, performances, things we like, things we didn't like. I want to... If you're looking for like a whole plot synopsis of things, that's not going to happen either. We're going to talk about... You can talk about things that happened in the plot, things you liked, things you were surprised by, things you didn't like, things that didn't work. But I want to keep it more general, more flowing of a conversation. Go listen to our episode where Jesse and I talked about Krypton to get a kind of an idea of what we're going to be doing tonight. So now you guys know the rules of the game. I don't want to go episode by episode. I just want to talk big things, Ronnie Adams. Big things. I want big things, big themes, big ideas. All right. Let's get started.
Really big
Not
shoe.
a word.
I'm going to go right to Chuckles first here. Ronnie Adams.
Oh, that's not, I didn't know I was Chuckles. He's the worst G.I. Joe.
Now, you asked to be on.
Should have been here for season 1. We could have just called you Cottonmouth for your chuckling.
Oh, goodness gracious. What made you decide to come and talk about Luke Cage? Was anything special about this one as opposed to the other Marvel series, or what?
It is slowly becoming my top 2. Like, the Punisher has been my favorite so far. This one is getting better. I liked it to begin with, but it was always like when Punisher came out, I was like, this is the end all be all of Marvel shows for me. I really enjoyed it. And then it was always Daredevil after that. But this one I like Daredevil. I like him. Pretty much like them all. But this one I'm enjoying a lot more.
Robert Winfrey, you and I have discussed pretty much almost all the Marvel shows. Just kind of a recap, where does the first season of Luke Cage rank for you in the compendium of Marvel TV shows that have come out so far? And you can include Hulu stuff like Runaways or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that, if you've seen any of those.
I got to catch up on Cloak and Dagger.
Oh, shut up.
He's allowed to have an opinion.
We do not talk about Cloak and Dagger.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because it's terrible.
It's not terrible. Terrible.
It's terrible.
My daughter and I are enjoying it, thank you very much.
Your daughter doesn't know better, and we've already established your intellectual capacities relative to her. All right?
Thanks. You gonna talk there, Judgy McJudgy, or
well, what's that say about me? I don't have a kid.
I don't know. I don't know you well enough. I don't know you well enough to throw pointed insults your way, so.
I wish we did the show in person so I could throw batteries at you, Winfrey. Talk! Answer my goddamn question.
Season 1 of Luke Cage, if we're talking about my personal enjoyment, 3rd from the top. If we're talking objective quality, 2nd.
Okay. It's been...
Can I ask what your... Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to step on you.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask him what his first favorite, like his absolute favorite Marvel show has been so far.
Punisher.
I believe personal enjoyment is Punisher. I would actually argue for objective quality Punisher as well. If we're further talking personal enjoyment, Luke Cage slips to number 3 behind my ability to fast forward through certain parts of season 2 of Daredevil. Because there's parts of it you just have to skip through.
Well, season 1
considering how much of Luke Cage I skipped through, it's kind of par for the course.
So, season 1 of Luke Cage has probably been my favorite Marvel show ever. And then after that, it's depending on my mood. In like the top 5 spots is season 1 of Jessica Jones, The Runaways, Punisher, and if I had to name a 5th one, probably this last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I really liked. Yeah, believe it or not.
What do I have to do to get you to stop saying The Runaways? It's just Runaways.
Okay, so the Runaways is definitely up there.
Oh, you jerk!
You can't make him stop. Just give
no,
unless you're prepared to die on that hill. It's not worth bringing up.
Can't stop, won't stop with the Runaways.
You don't know me.
Keep away from
you don't know me then.
Keep away from the run around suicide. Hey. Anyway, so this season sees Luke Cage off the heels of the Defenders and obviously season 1 of Luke Cage. He's the king of Harlem at this point, or at least he's the hero of Harlem. People know his name now. He's stepping out of the shadows. He's trying to right wrongs, that sort of thing. Our villains are a continuation from season 1 villain Shades, played by Theo Rossi, and of course Black Mariah, played by good old Mariah Dillard, played by Alfre Woodard. The other new villain that's introduced this season is Bushmaster, who is John McIver, who is played by Mustafa Shakir. So let's start with that. As far as the villains go, what do we think of the villains this season? We'll start with the most obvious one, Black Mariah, Alfre Woodard. I think she gave, first of all, I think she gave a Emmy-winning performance. If she's not at least nominated for an Emmy for her performance this season, there's something wrong with that committee.
They didn't nominate D'Onofrio. They didn't nominate John Bernthal. They just don't for these.
Yeah,
it's a crying shame because there are some truly spectacular performances that have gone into these Netflix shows, but they just don't seem to get nominated.
Yeah, it's like they don't consider them TV for some odd reason. But I mean, in all honesty, I've watched a lot of TV over the years, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say Alfre Woodard gave a phenomenal, just an stellar performance as Black Mariah in season 2. I mean, her range from going from the proper city council, educated black woman to swinging in the other direction. I mean, I'm going to apologize ahead of time, first to Ronnie Adams, then to everybody else. I'm going to drop the N-word because the characters use the N-word. But her referring to Luke Cage as nigga had me on the floor every time she did it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just him either. I mean, it was everybody. And at first I was like, man, this performance is really, really over the top. What is happening? Because going from what she was to what she is now. But it works, and she's amazing at it because her character is taking a full shift. So why not go over the top? Why not? I don't know how to refer to it. Why not go full?
She drops at one point, "Oh, whatever, nigga," and and it's like, whoa! I'm like fanning myself. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, that's some heat on TV. She was probably one of my favorite parts of this entire season, and her arc, trying to, I can't say legitimize herself because she was already legitimate, but her arc from trying to get out of the crime to being completely sucked in it, and then it overwhelming her to the point that it poisons everything else. Notably, might have been a better arc than the one they gave Luke Cage, quite frankly, and probably the strongest arc of the entire show. Let me go over to our Everybody Loves a Bad Guy expert, Robert Winfrey. What did you think of Black Mariah, as played by Alfre Woodard?
You know what this reminded me of now that I think about it? And this might sound like an insult, but I don't necessarily mean it that way. I don't know if you've seen the Street Fighter movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
If you compare it to Raul Julia.
I am, actually.
Oh, wow.
Go on.
I'm intrigued.
You have my attention, sir.
Because, I mean, Ronnie mentioned that she's over the top, which is accurate at times. But it's not an over the top that takes you out of the film, which is it's this really weird balance that's incredibly difficult to strike of being over the top and grandiose while also seeming to fit in with the rest of the show. Which is the thing that has always struck me about Raul Julia's performance as Bison, because he's unbelievably over the top. I mean, massively over the top. He out over the top Jean-Claude Van Damme trying to be an American. Like, it doesn't make sense. But it also completely works for the character and for the movie. Again, the movie itself is just cheese and camp. But it works. Here you get again, at times over the top, at times, and I mean this actually threw me a little bit for the first few episodes, because it was so inconsistent. And I was watching this going, God, what are we doing here? And then when you realize that the inconsistency is deliberate because the character is going crazy, it works better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she retains her sanity towards the end. I think she's completely crossed
she loses
over.
It like 3 episodes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
But her ability to switch it on and off. Like when she was presenting that center for where they found all the heads on the pikes. When she was presenting that, she was prim and proper, very much politician and everything. But when she got back home, it was the N word everywhere, everywhere else, and GD this, and just like whoa, when did this one show up? So I think it definitely works. I mean, and she's incredible as an actress. I mean, it's been so much fun to watch it.
Okay. Let's just go ahead and say spoilers for everybody. If you're listening to this review and you haven't seen the show yet, I would stop, because I'm going to talk about how things end and completely spoil some surprises. So that's just the way the show is. So anyway,
they're only surprises if you're not paying attention.
So before I talk about how she dies, because I have some things to say about that. We're going to get to Bushmaster and the Shades in just a minute, but I got to talk about Dr. Nightshade, who was of course her daughter. I'm trying to find her in the character. In the
character's name is
here.
Matilda.
Okay.
Do you want the actress?
Nope, I got it. Yeah, okay. I had this reversed. Gabrielle Dennis plays Dr. Nightshade, who is Tilda Johnson in this show. And let's just talk about that for a second, because here's what they did. They took the Dr. Nightshade character and they said, well, how can we sort of revamp this so that it makes sense for the series, makes sense for 2018, makes sense for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they made her the daughter of Alfre Woodard's character, Mariah Dillard. And they said, okay, well, she's a doctor, but she's a doctor who's sort of gone the other way with medical practice and decided that she's going to be holistic. And so specifically the plant Nightshade comes into effect when we talk about Bushmaster. But that's how let's just take a pause for a second. What did you guys think of how they handled recreating this Dr. Nightshade character? I'll go to Ronnie first, because I liked it. I thought that even though they've got wizards like Doctor Strange in this world, and they've got some really fantastic things that happened, I thought a more grounded version of that character made sense, and it would have been a little silly to do some of the other, to do the character as they are portrayed in, like the Captain America comics and whatnot. I liked this version of it, and her relationship that they created between her and Mariah, I thought was, worthy of attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, you pretty much said everything I feel about it, because I think it really matches the series, because the series is a more, we've used this word, this term quite a bit on like source material, but it's a more street show. I mean, it is a street level show, because they're protecting Harlem and throwing him, a more magical, character like Doctor Strange or something like that wouldn't fit in. It would honestly, for me, it would derail the whole show. So I really enjoy the way they've reinvented this character, and how else better to bring her in than to make her related to one of the main villains. So I thought they did a great job with that.
What'd you think of Dr. Nightshade, Robert?
I have no touchstone for the character as written in the comics. This is literally my first exposure to it.
Did you know that that's who she was?
Nope.
Oh, so you learned something. Good. All right. So
every day.
And that's what the show's all about.
You were starting to say something. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Oh, I said that's what this show's all about.
Okay.
Learning.
Okay. I thought you were going to say something else.
No, I wasn't going to say.
Speaking of, bionic arms don't work that way.
All right, we'll get there, Mr. Wizard. So I just want to finish up with Dr. Nightshade, because she plays an integral role in two ways. One, obviously she's the supplier for Bushmaster, and it's Nightshade that gives him his superpowers. We'll talk a little bit about Bushmaster, like I said, in just a minute. But she pulls the final gotcha on Mariah, and here's this person she's kind of hid behind shades, and she's been the power behind the curtain in a lot of ways. She's not out front with guns, and then towards the end, she shoots and burns Bushmaster's family and all of that, and she ends up finally getting her just desserts, and even in prison, which was great. I'm the head nigga in charge. Oh, it was so good. You know, she slits
stupid.
She slits the two girls' throats. Oh, come on, that was dramatic and fantastic. It was she lit up the
stupid.
screen. All right, well, the difference of opinion. So you know,
no, objectively stupid. You just enjoyed it.
You know what? I'll give you a second to explain why, but let me get to what I was getting to. But you know, so even in prison, you know, she's got this semblance of power to her, and in the end, it's her daughter who does her in with a kiss. I really like that. I like that if you're going to kill off this character, one, I'm glad it wasn't Luke who did it, you know, in kind of a Superman Zod moment. But
that's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I wanted. I wanted him to do the great call. What was that stupid finisher, the great call he had, where he just crushes your head between his hands? Just Jello right through the fingers.
But I enjoyed that use of Dr. Nightshade. What did you think of Mariah's end there in the prison? I mean, again, you wanted Luke to do it, so I guess you're not wild about Harry. But go ahead, Robert.
It could have been worse. They could have kept her around for another season. Oh God, she should have died earlier. Let me be very clear about that.
Really? See, I would have thought
Yes.
I thought killing her at the very end of season 2 was appropriate. I thought that they had done all they could with her, and that a third season with her would have been overkill. No pun intended. But I think
No, they should have burned her in prison. That literally should have been the end of that character.
Why?
Why not?
Well, no, don't don't lay back and yell why not. First of all, explain what your problem is with your issue with her in prison to begin with. But why burn her in prison? Why not the way they did it, where she's betrayed by her daughter, who she had betrayed countless times?
Because it's drawn out. I mean, this whole season is drawn out. I was so sick of it by the end. I was literally just sick to death of the status quo.
Oh, I have such different approaches to this season, because I honestly thought for the first time ever, this is the first season that didn't drag in the middle. And that's not an unpopular opinion, by the way. That's a lot of critics have said that. This is the one.
That's fair.
This is the first one that had enough story to fill all 13 episodes. But I cut you off. Go on.
If we wind up having a difference of opinion on that, that's fine. I'm more than happy to acknowledge that how you enjoy this. I'm not claiming that, like Jessica Jones or, geez, what was it?
No, Jessica Jones ran out of story and just meandered in the middle.
3 episodes before the actual end of the season. Mm. And there was, what was it?
Daredevil 2 dies in the middle. Iron Fist died in the middle.
No. Iron Fist dies in the beginning, and actually gets better as time goes on. But there's what was it? I think it was with Iron Fist when I said no. There's a whole episode, not an individual episode, but an aggregate that you could just cut out of this whole show. Mm. And look,
was it the musical episode?
What, of this one?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, Jesus.
Because seriously, I'm glad that season 2 continues the proud tradition of 9-minute concerts.
All right, you're both ridiculous, and I will deal with the concert thing towards the end of the show, because that's the main event. That's what everyone came to TV Party tonight to hear, is a scream that there wasn't enough concerts, there was too many concerts. God damn it, hail to the chief. We'll get to it. It's the last thing I want to talk about. But for now, we were talking about
hang on.
Mariah in prison.
Since I was talking about the status quo, that's what I hate about scripted network television. More than anything else, they bend over backwards to maintain the status quo. Characters have margin. And bear in mind, this isn't just about character arcs, which are usually marginal and then forgotten about as soon as it's convenient. And that absolutely applies to the Netflix shows as well. That is not exclusive to broadcast television, but that's an issue of writing more so than producing. Whereas in broadcast network television, it's the producing that is no, nothing can change. No, these characters must go on a journey but arrive back at the exact same place so everyone feels safe. and comfortable, and we can milk this for another 8 seasons. And I absolutely hate it. And there's 2 different arcs in this season that had me beating my head against a wall because you actually did something to shake things up, undid it, and immediately reverted to the way things were.
Okay, can you say specifically what that was so that people know what you're talking
Sure.
about?
Mariah loses everything.
Right.
She gets her assets stolen, her club stolen, her house burned down. She nearly dies. Luke should have let her die, but it's a whole other thing we can talk about when we get to the fallacy of the morality play that's going on in this season. So she loses everything. She's losing people around her. Her lawyer bails because she can't pay him anymore because he's a lawyer. And lawyers are bad people. And then...
Well, if they're a criminal lawyer, yes. He knew who he was defending. I mean, come on.
Sure, and last I checked, equal representation applies to all people. Doesn't mean he's not...
you know what I mean.
Look, if you want to argue his personal morality, then we can argue him as a character. I'm against the besmirching of the profession.
I'm not besmirching the profession. I'm besmirching the character.
Wasn't he a spitting image, by the way, of David Alan Grier? That's who I thought
Really
that was.
A little bit, yeah. Between him and Piranha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Piranha was David Alan Grier the first time he was on screen.
I did too.
Like, God, you look young. And then the lawyer comes out, and I'm just like, wait a minute. Why do you look like David Alan Grier too?
Because half the cast of this is just bad Hollywood clones of David Alan Grier. I mean, that's how they populate the. But anyway, so she loses everything. Bushmaster steals it from her, nearly kills her, doesn't kill her, should have killed her, didn't. We spend an episode trying to rectify this. Then, after Bushmaster is dealt with, the very next episode, the beginning of the very next episode, hallelujah, she's got all of her money back, and she re-owns everything, and we're right back where we were 3 episodes prior, with nothing actually having been gained or accomplished apart from the temporary dispatching of Bushmaster, for him to return 2 episodes later and do the same thing all over again. Because hooray, cyclical storytelling.
Okay.
That specific enough for you?
Yes, and I'm not going to debate your recitation of the events that happened in the show. They did, in fact, happen, and they happened as you said them. I just didn't have a problem with it.
Fine. Again, like, how we enjoy things is different, and that's perfectly acceptable. That bothered me.
Okay. So, we were talking, though, about her final demise, and you didn't feel, I'm guessing, that you didn't feel that the way that she goes out by Dr. Nightshade was particularly strong? Like, what was your issue there?
It's just drawn out. It just takes too long. It's teased like 3 different times. And then we get protracted goodbyes. We get her sermonizing in open court, which would not have been allowed. But hey, why we don't pay attention to physics? Why should we pay attention to the legal system in a show that's meant to be grounded in reality? Hacks.
That's a bit of a nitpick, but okay.
You wanted to know my issues. I'm going to give you my issues. And yes, some of them are nitpicky. I'll freely admit that.
Okay, as long as you're freely admitting that you know they're nitpicks.
Some of them, yes. Some of them are absolutely nitpicks on my part. That's fair. I can fixate on the minutia, especially when I know the details of how things actually work. And when you don't give me a reason to suspend my disbelief, I don't go along with it anymore.
This is a universe where a guy waves his hands in a wax on, wax off motion and opens a portal to wherever the fuck. I honestly,
sure. No. And if we were suddenly dealing with the metaphysics of that and them not working as intended, that might bother me too. We're not dealing with that. We're not dealing with a different set of laws. We're not dealing with...
No, we're dealing with a police department where the way that you get promoted is the guy behind you gets murdered or killed or whatever, and
which is also not how that works.
You know, you get promoted like you do on the Klingon on the alternate universe fucking Enterprise, where they're all pirates.
And again, like, this is also, again, supposed to be at least somewhat grounded in reality.
Where do you get that? None of this is grounded in reality.
If it's street level, it's meant to be grounded in a degree of reality.
Hang on, I'm gonna get Ronnie to weigh in on this because we're having now an argument.
Hang on. Let me be clear. When I say a degree of reality, look, the man's bulletproof and super strong, and you have a guy who's inhaling the fumes of this mystical plant that only grows on the north slopes of a Jamaican mountain.
The Blue Mountain, man. It's the Blue Mountain.
Is able to then excise physically from his body materials that are lodged there. Don't get me wrong, I know it's a superhero show.
I'm starting to wonder. This isn't Law and fucking Order here. This is...
No. And I know that. Again, that's not my gripe.
When we last saw this character, he was fighting mystical ninjas and a woman who had come back to life. I'm starting to
And
feel...
if any of them had been arrested... Then I would expect them to go through the alternate, whatever the judicial process is for people with powers, which they've loosely alluded to but haven't actually discussed or fleshed out because, boy, details sure are hard.
Look,
Instead, we are dealing with a simple crime lord.
They were more concerned with getting to Infinity War, not dealing with the raft.
All right, sure, but we've also had now. How many seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a season of Jessica Jones, a season of this, and nobody talks about it?
Okay, well, you can't fault the people on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for that. They were in space in the future for half of this season.
Which is just further reason I don't watch the show, because it's stupid.
Okay. They really weren't concerned with whether or not the raft was working or constitutional because the Earth had blown itself up. Okay, or Quake had blown it up. So
who cares?
I'm just saying.
It's nonsense that they retcon halfway through it. The same way they're going to retcon everything from Infinity War next year around the same time. Like, who cares?
They sure are. And for more on that, check out Ant-Man coming to theaters this Friday.
Here's my point. When we get to the points in the story that are deliberately set up to operate essentially in concert with how they operate in the real world, I expect them to adhere to that to at least a reasonable degree.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
And
again, it doesn't take much.
Okay.
All you need to give me is a reason to suspend my disbelief.
Okay. We have to move on from here. We've spent way too much time on this one subject. So since we just brought him up, let's talk about it. The new big bad of this season, one of the main obstacles, weirdly, not necessarily in confrontation with Luke Cage, but more in confrontation with Black Mariah, is Bushmaster from the Blue Hills of Jamaica. His family was in concert with and in business with the Stokes family. There was betrayals and fires and all that good stuff. And so Bushmaster is here to avenge his family and take what is rightfully his birthright, if you will. Harlem, that's what he's talking about. He has come. He is the reckoning of the Stokes-Dillard family, and he's going to take everything from them and make it his. But in order to do that, he does have to deal with Luke Cage. Let me say this. And this is absolutely 100% a personal thing for me, but it's not, at least not with the TV that I'm exposed to. You don't hear much of the island folk. I mean, an occasional character here or there, but you know, when it comes to black folks in television, they're, at least in American television, they're 99.9% of the time, you know, American or Americanized. You don't see or hear...
And the other percentage are African.
Yeah, and the other percentage are African. You don't much hear from the Caribbean folk. And I thoroughly enjoyed the amount of time spent with just the Jamaican characters talking to one another and sort of discussing even just the family heritage, not so much the national heritage of the country, but I guess... What I liked about this season and how they handled this was the novelty of a Jamaican bad guy, a Jamaican character, surrounded by other Jamaican characters who are good, bad, or indifferent, and their struggles and their thoughts and their culture all being bandied about throughout the season, which isn't something you see very often, and one could argue something that's sort of sorely lacking across the American television.
God.
And look, and if that sounds a little social justice warrior-y to you,
It does.
You're entitled to your opinion, but again, novelty is a thing. These people exist. They have a culture. Maybe it should show up more.
Busted Forks are novel, too.
Maybe it should show up more than once every 100 years. I'm just saying. There's a whole world out there, Hollywood writers. Maybe try using some of it. But anyway.
I just enjoy that culture. I always have.
You enjoy a specific subset of that culture, eh?
Yeah? He's calling you a drug addict, see?
I don't smoke the pot.
Okay, Whitey. The pot. Like the
I'm not
Runaways.
taking the pot.
Like the Runaways, right?
Yeah. But no, I've always enjoyed that culture. When I went on a cruise and I was in the Caribbean, and it's just I've always enjoyed that. I like reggae music as well, so this season has been really good for me. Because there's been a lot. But any time when they represent a culture, and I have to turn on the closed captions to kind of keep up with it, that's good. I enjoy that. So let's take Blood Diamond for example. For a while there, in the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio and Commander he went to the commander to trade guns for diamonds, and they were speaking pidgin English. They were speaking pidgin to each other. I was like, whoa. So I had to turn on, I turned on the subtitles, to see, what was going on. That means they took it seriously enough to actually learn that dialect and did it well. Whereas you think of how it's done in other, films or TV shows. What I'm thinking of is the Steven Seagal movie where he went against the Jamaican drug lords, and it was just terrible. And I can't remember what it was.
There's only 2 Steven Seagal movies that "it's terrible" does not apply to as a qualifier. You're just playing the odds there. You're doing really well.
Yeah. One of them would be that's not terrible is I can't remember. He's on the boat.
Under Siege.
Under Siege.
Great movie.
Easily his best work.
Yeah,
because Tommy Lee Jones carries the darn thing.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
And Gary Busey has not yet gone completely insane.
But just insane enough to make it fun.
And he hasn't. And I mean, it's weird because he hasn't yet established the Gary Busey scale of ugliness in that movie.
It's true.
It goes from 1 to Gary Busey.
Dude in that movie. Yeah.
In the 80s, he was a good-looking guy. No one knows what happened, but yeesh.
Yeah, well, the crazy hit, and he wrecked a motorcycle, and I don't know what else. But anyway, I've Bushmaster to me is oh man, I've really enjoyed the heck out of this character. The fact that somebody can actually give Luke Cage a run for his money in a fight. He's just not slapping guys on the head and knocking them out, which is hysterical still, but it's good to see him actually throw a punch.
Well, I wouldn't say it's good, but
sure. But
I watch too much fighting to not be critical of on-screen fighting technique.
That's why I said sure.
You see what I deal with every week, Ronnie?
Ronnie?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I listen to the show as well, but
I can't imagine why.
But that's exactly why I said okay and moved on, because I was like, you're not going to win this, with somebody who actually watches that much fighting. So, but anyway, so I've really, I think they've done really well this season. I've enjoyed it all. I've not really been disinterested in it at all, even in the middle or whatever. So it's as a big bad, I think Bushmaster is really great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed him as a character, and moving away from some of the social justice warrior comments that I made in the whole representation of that culture. I thought the actor was a really strong presence. I think he physically absolutely gave Mike Coulter an opposing character to deal with. But I thought his motivations as the season wore on and you got to see some of the flashbacks, and one of the episodes that sticks out to me is the one where they did the flashback of his origin, and it showed him as a little kid, and it showed who's probably one of my favorite characters in the entire show is Mama Stokes. She's what a horrible human being, but the woman playing her, in the little screen time she got, really for me just lit up the entire screen. And just how evil she is, but
same thing during Mariah's meltdown.
Yeah. But I like that. Here was this character who really did. When they first introduced him, and he says Harlem is my birthright. That kind of a thing. It's like, meh, all right, here we go. But then you see why he. All right, take me on a journey. But then they actually do, and they show you that that they had built this empire, and then for no reason other than greed and their ability to do so, just cut this family out and killed him, and left him to die. And it's like, wow, yeah, I could definitely see why he would have a vendetta, and come back now after he's got all this power that he can use and all this muscle. Both figuratively and literally, to go against this family that is itself entrenched in Harlem and powerful and everything else. Like, he brought his army and he was ready to go. And I can absolutely that's the thing with this particular season of Luke Cage. Your main characters, Black Mariah, Luke Cage, Bushmaster, Dr. Nightshade. There are times in the season where you dislike all of them, and you're rooting against them because of the decisions that they're making. And there are times that you're rooting for them. You can absolutely see where they're coming from. You're like, yeah, you absolutely deserve that. That's the weird thing. Even though you have a clear hero in Luke Cage and clear villains in Bushmaster and Black Mariah, there are moments where things are not so black and white. There are definitely shades of gray, and I found myself questioning at times, who, did the people deserve what was happening to them at the rate that it was happening. So that's how I felt about it. All right, Robert, why do you hate Bushmaster?
I don't.
Okay.
Look, regarding the perspective you took, I think diversity and inclusion for the sake of diversity and inclusion is stupid.
Okay, but are you assuming that's why it was done? Because I thought they had a very good reason for making him Jamaican. God damn it.
Let me make my point here. Again, doing it just for the sake of doing it, I tend to think is stupid. That said, if you can do it believably in a way that fits the story and have everything executed well, sure, why not?
Well, don't you think they did that here?
Yes. Again, I took issue with your perspective on, boy, we sure do need more Jamaicans in popular culture.
I don't believe that's exactly what I said. And nor was I making the argument for doing it. Nor was I making the argument to do it just to do it. I believe implied was there's a greater world out there to draw from when it makes sense. Sorry to not make myself more explicit.
Where it makes sense, which is an unbelievably important caveat.
Okay, well now I've corrected myself. Let's move on.
I don't have any problem with Bushmaster. I liked him. Again, he's got screen presence. He's a big guy. He looks good next to Mark Coulter. He did the accent well, to the best of my knowledge. Certainly better than a lot of other people playing Jamaicans have in across film and television, or in professional wrestling for that matter, Kofi.
Kofi.
Poor Kofi. Everyone take a drink, by the way.
Oh, I got a better one coming up later.
Still the greatest moment in wrestling when they called him out to, wait. Didn't you used to have a Jamaican accent? In the middle of the ring in front of everybody. Thanks, Triple
Almost
H.
as great as Triple H looking at Chris Masters and going, didn't he used to be bigger?
Oh, wow, yeah. Forgot about that. That one hurt.
Anyway, I liked that his motivation was nuanced and layered. I liked that you rooted for him at times.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they put him in a position where he is, again, quasi-sympathetic, where he's still a bad guy, but you look at him versus another terrible person, and you have to make a personal judgment call about the circumstances you find yourself in, or alternatively, take a longer view and try to figure out how that plays. And it puts the audience in an emotional state that is meant to represent the actual philosophical and logistical quandary that our heroes find themselves in, and that's effective storytelling. I had no problem with him.
All right, this last thing on villains I'm going to bring up, and then we're going to shift and take a look at some of our hero characters, Luke Cage, Misty Knight, etc., etc.
Theo Rossi just burned all the goodwill he had built up with me in this season.
Let's talk about Shades. Robert, you brought this up offline. I just want to jump to it because, and I want to set this up by bringing up the comparison. Okay, so let me just say that for the most part, at least from my perspective, Theo Rossi as Shades in this season was fine. He was adequate. He was serviceable. Yeah, he was a serviceable secondary thug. Every time he kissed Alfre Woodard, I just kind of feeling, but whatever.
I died a little inside.
Yeah. He seemed sufficiently.
I wonder if he negotiated for how much that was how much extra he got per kiss.
He was sufficiently slimy enough that he was a fine thug character, but they gave him what was supposed to be a particularly dramatic scene, and it's one of the few criticisms I have of this season. Robert brought it up too,
how derivative parts of it are.
Yeah, but I want to draw a distinction, and you and I can kind of kick this around for a little bit. So let's talk about a different show. One of my favorites, The Shield.
Great show.
The Shield's final season, shortly before the series finale, in like the second or third to last episode, Vic Mackey, in exchange for complete
immunity.
Immunity.
They said it enough during the season of Luke Cage. I think you'd know.
I forgot Ronnie Adams' name. I'm not remembering too good these days.
This is true.
So, in exchange for complete and total 100% immunity, Vic Mackey confesses to everything he did in the previous seasons of The Shield, starting with the murder of Terry. And in that scene, you see two things happening with Vic. The one just the bearing of his soul. The stuff that he has had to bury for so long and lie about, to the point where he was starting to believe the lies. And then everything just sort of breaks free in this Pandora's box of nonsense, shit, and lies that comes out of him. And the actor who plays Vic Mackey,
Michael Chiklis.
Thank you. Michael Chiklis really did a phenomenal job of wrestling with the guilt, but also being free from it, all in the same scene. It was a very heady performance. Any issue with what I've said so far? Yes, no?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely one of my favorite scenes. My two favorite scenes from The Shield actually come from Michael Chiklis. This being my favorite, the second one being when he comes home and breaks down when he finds out his family is left. Because that's just, there's no dialogue. And The Shield has very minimal use of music, so when they do use it, it has a greater impact. And there's a perfect score behind it as he freaks out it has this breakdown for 40 seconds to a minute.
Yeah. So
and then then gets himself back together. I mean, he has a similar breakdown in a hospital and throws something through a wall, which was also great.
So in Luke Cage, the setup is that they've gone to just put a fright into Bushmaster's family at their restaurant, and Mariah goes insane, has everybody execute everybody in the damn building, and when the cousin, I think it's the cousin, or the uncle,
the guy who raised him.
Yeah, when the uncle, and then they set the uncle on fire, and when he won't die fast enough, she shoots him with her handgun, and for some, and here's where things don't make sense for me. They at no point to any kind of or allude to any kind of ethics that Shades has. Shades is portrayed as an opportunist and a slimeball and a thug and a sociopath, but somehow this crossed the line for him to the point where he's going to utterly betray Black Mariah and in exchange for immunity testify against her.
I would argue that he actually is given a mild set of ethics that goes into his character.
If you're talking about like criminal ethics, like everybody, what's his face from The Wire, Omar, like every man must live by a code. Yeah, okay, I'll go along with that, but not enough.
Well, he expressly gets upset when in season 1 when Pops' barbershop gets shot up because it violates the rules.
He talks about. I was going to say he talks about that in season 2 as well, where there's rules to this shit, and she has gone above and beyond that. Okay, reasonable explanation. I don't feel like it was strongly enough portrayed in his character to the point where he would go as far as saying, "I'm just going to turn the whole gang in," and buy myself
but he's
out
also
of this.
over the course of the last 2 seasons personally executed his 2 best friends.
All right, fair enough.
Look, really, it's less about her necessarily having gone too far. It's more it's not a straw. This is the anvil that breaks the camel's back.
I was going to say maybe this is the Poot moment where he's done too much and he's seen too much and he just wants out of the game. Yeah. Poot being another character from The Wire, folks. Anywho,
that no one.
Shut up.
Thank you. What? No, I really didn't know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying thank you for him saying nobody cares about.
Oh no! I've never seen The Wire.
Oh well, let me tell you about Poot.
You're not missing much.
Anyway, this all leads to what's supposed to be this really dramatic scene of him telling all and revealing all, and it's and kind of like a Marvel movie, it's undercut with useless humor, and just there's breaks in it, and it's just. I'm going to pitch it over to Robert and then to Ronnie for his reaction to this, because then maybe it didn't affect him as strongly as it did you and I, but I just felt like, one, the performance wasn't there. I don't feel like the performance was as strong as it could have been. And two, the way that it was directed and shot was for shit, in my opinion. And I was like, okay, I get it, but you're completely undercutting the idea that he's... that he's going against everything he's done for now almost 2 seasons to come to this new place. Like, I got none of that, and that was the intent. So that was kind of a failure as a scene for me. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we talk about the scene that this is clearly ripping off, and there's more than one of those that this season does, it's such, again, look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it, because it's a truly, truly great performance from Michael Chiklis. And I think my favorite moment from that scene, well, there's 2 of them, but they kind of go together. One is at the end when the poor person who cut him this deal looks at him after turning off the recorder and goes, "You've ruined me, right?" And he just looks down at the machine that he's just confessed into, looks back at her and goes, "I have done worse." The other is right at the beginning, after he confesses to the murder of this detective that actually takes place in the first episode of the entire series. And she is, gobsmacked by this because she knows he's dirty, but she doesn't know he's
a murderer,
as dirty as he is.
A murderer, a cop killer.
And then after he goes through the specifics of that crime, she goes, "Are we done here?" And he looks at her, looks down at the recorder, and goes, "How much memory does that thing have?" And then proceeds to, go on for the last 5 years of his life. Just throw that into it. and again, there's subtlety, and there's also a real unflinching look at it. Here, there's the opposite. It's a little bit over the top in a couple of respects, and that's not just Theo Rossi, that's everyone involved. And if memory serves, that scene from The Shield was one scene. I mean, it's kind of spaced out. It's clearly edited and cut together as it's covering a tremendous amount of time and material, but they want to make sure that the audience understands that he is going through everything point by point, because anything he leaves out, he's screwed on. And here we constantly cut away to other things for no discernible reason. Yeah. If he's going to do this really should have been just, let's put the camera here, let's focus on it, and let's leave it as such. The only part about that entire sequence, disjointed as it was, that was, I think, even moderately effective, and this is, bear in mind, I say moderately in the sense that I know what it's supposed to do, but I'm not sure how well it actually accomplishes this, was Misty leaving the room to go get him a bottle of water, briefly breaking down while walking to get said water, coming back and being back in cop mode by the time she gets back into the room.
By the way, with that, I mean, I'm probably alone here, but maybe some other fans of The Wire really thought we were going to get a White Mike scenario. Okay, so for Ronnie's sake and anyone that didn't watch The Wire, White Mike was a drug dealer in Season 2, and he's one of the ones that confesses a whole bunch of shit that kind of makes their case for them, or at least begins to make their case. And he's willing to confess these things for, a bit of a deal, but he also wants a sandwich. And it's like, they're feeding him, so they're making him, happy and more willing to tell them more stuff. And at one point, he asked for the sandwich. He was like, "You want a drink?" And he was like, "Give me a strawberry soda." And the detective goes, "Does it have to be strawberry?" And White Mike says to the black detective, "Hook a brother up." And I totally wanted Shades to do a White Mike moment, where, or even better, and I can't remember the character's name now, but in Season 1, we have another character who is confessing to every murder ever in the history of Baltimore, some of which he committed himself, some of which he's just taking credit for, because he's already getting life, and they've promised him no death penalty, so he just says, fuck it, and he starts taking murders just to take them. And at one point, it is implied he's taking murders for more sandwiches.
Wow.
He's just like, if you get me another one of these sandwiches, I'll go a few more murders. Dude, there are moments.
I have to see the show.
You really do. The fucking Wire is amazing.
I would be very, very cautious watching it if I were you. It is an HBO show, so it's
but
just be cautious watching it. But again, I needle Mark about it because I can, and he has an irrational attachment to it. It's legitimately great television.
But when
I've seen episodes of Oz, so
yeah. And as long as they're in the first 3 seasons of Oz, you're doing good, because that was when Oz was good.
Well, there's considerably less ass rape in The Wire than there is in Oz, if we're being specific.
I would hope so.
But
considerably more violent murder, though.
That's debatable. There's some pretty grisly murders in Oz.
No. There are. If we're going to put them 1-to-1, yes, there are gorier murders in Oz. I mean, Beecher kills a man with his fingernails.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a greater quantity of murder in The Wire.
Oh, people get shot every episode in that show. Especially it's from Season 2 on. All right, but the point being is I just wanted Shades to... I felt like he was giving it up a little too easily, and I wanted there to be that, sandwich moment. I wanted him... In other words...
You wanted him to be a different character at that point than they had written him to be.
I wanted him to not be so eager to tell all this stuff. I wanted him to make the cops work for it a little bit more. Because they started off that way. He starts by telling them something, and they're like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? And he's like, I'm getting there. And at that point, I was with it. I was interested in his take on the confession. That he's going to take him for this ride, whether they like it or not. And when he dismisses the lawyer...
His lawyer's like the mother of a kid he tried to kill in Season 1. That was hilarious.
And when he dismisses the lawyer, he was just like, "You can't do anything else for me, right?" He was like, "Forget you then." And she's like, she just wants to club him, but she can't. And I liked all that, but then it switches to nothing, and then they kept cutting away from it. So, unless you've got something else about that scene, Robert, go ahead, Ronnie. Were you impacted at all by the confession scene?
No, and that's a bad thing. As far as like emotionally invested in or anything like that, no. I thought it was too easy. It wasn't. I'm like you. There should have been something more. I mean, like, him being shades through the whole thing and killing his best friend, and not only his best friend, but apparently the guy he was in love with at one time. In prison, because you got to do what you got to do to get by, and is what they said. And but it was just kind of it was almost just too much of a throwaway moment.
I'll let you go.
That makes sense.
No, I got you. I'll let you go a little bit longer. Anything you want to say about Shades this season?
Up until that point, I liked him. I thought he was cool. I thought he was coming into his own, or trying to, but still had that little bit of Mariah's lapdog in him. But it was still, I mean, like, he's vastly different from the Shades in the comic book, because the Shades in the comic book actually wore glasses that gave him optic blasts. So it was kind of like he was taking you on a journey to introduce you to somebody a little different, and he was the one, other than Bushmaster, I kind of cheered for to get his own, to get his own thing going, and maybe hopefully develop into a big bad in his own right later on. But then it just kind of fell flat.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before we switch gears here, just round robin, concerning the villains, their plots, their motives, their desires, their portrayals. Robert, anything left unsaid you want to get to? Any burning desires?
I mean, how much do we want to count Matilda as a villain for this?
Dr. Nightshade?
Yeah.
Say what's on your mind. Don't hold back.
I don't understand why, for the love of God, she got a 5-minute solo.
You're talking about the piano solo?
Yes. Is there not enough music by people who apparently matter to this genre?
What is your issue with this?
It took 5 minutes.
She was bearing her soul. That's what was happening.
They ran out of dialogue to write. Give them a break.
Oh, God.
Yeah, words are hard. No. Look, I have a serious...
It was her cousin. It was her beloved cousin's piano, and she was trying to connect to him through the music.
No, he wasn't a murderous psychopath either.
Oh, my God.
I mean, no, I've only spent the last, 13 episodes struggling to come to terms with this, and the last 3 deliberately distancing myself from this. I said my goodbyes at his gravestone, but now, because my mother, who I have deliberately ignored and sworn off at least 3 different times on screen already, encouraged me to do a walkthrough of this place. Yeah, sure.
You are a ridiculous human being.
I am absolutely not. And let me be clear about another thing. If you could have done this same thing with just her. We didn't need lyrics. All right, if she just plays emotionally and evocatively, that works. And you can do that over another scene rather than bog down the episode.
Gabrielle Dennis is an American film and television actress and comedian, known mostly for her work in cable television.
I do not care.
Dennis starred in the Fox medical drama Rosewood alongside Morris Chestnut.
I am not critiquing any other aspect of her performance negatively. That scene, drug, drug down the episode, and should have been cut.
I have your answer, and it just came to me. Dennis will play Whitney Houston in the BET miniseries The Bobby Brown Story.
Care.
No. I'm making a point. Dennis will play Whitney Houston in the BET miniseries The Bobby Brown Story. I'm willing to bet that scene wasn't in there originally, or not the way that it was shot, but she bargained for the ability to be able to sing and play so that people would be interested in her show about Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston.
They should have not caved on those demands.
I'm just saying I think that's why it's in there. Oh, she was also in Justified. Wow.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wait, hang on. I'm trying to remember who she was.
She was in the episodes The Kids Aren't All Right and Good Intentions.
Oh, okay. It's been too long since I've seen it to remember again something that specific. I mean, look, again, I am not critiquing her acting. That scene was stupid.
Ronnie, help me out here.
Ronnie,
I got
agree with
nothing.
me and be right. It's nice to be on this side of the fence. It's good to be right.
You talked over him. He was actually agreeing with you. Jesus.
I now disagree.
You're only hurting yourself.
I was unimpacted by this solo because there's so much music in the daggone show that it just kind of fit.
Every time one of you guys critiques the music, I hate white people more. I just want you to know that.
I'm not critiquing the music.
No, you're critiquing the amount of music in it. Oh, why can't we get back?
I'm not critiquing the amount of music in it. Did I say I hated the amount of music?
You
I
just
said
said
there's a lot of music.
you just said with the amount of music in this show, this was too much, and it makes me want
No,
to
it
bang
didn't.
You just said no. You know what? I promise I wouldn't make Ronnie hates black people jokes. I promise.
Thank you.
I'm holding it
Thank
back.
But here's the deal. I didn't say it was bad or good or anything. I just said it fit. With the amount of music they have in the show, it fit.
Look, they should just hire for season 3. They should just hire Lin-Manuel Miranda and turn the damn thing into a musical.
I know, right? That's exactly what I was thinking.
I cannot complain about
Mark.
8-minute
He's not
concerts.
making a good. He's not saying that's a good thing.
I want Luke Cage season 3 to be the musical. I think that would be perfect.
To be fair, I also don't care much for Hamilton, but
I like this idea of Luke Cage the musical. Who could they get to be the villain?
who cares?
No, I need to finish this thought. Ronnie, in your vast knowledge of comic book villains, who could they get to be a villain in a musical?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know.
Oh, nuts.
Do I know any?
His heritage. He dislikes the way R&B and rap have bastardized African tribal music, and he's back to claim it for its rightful place in Wakandan history, and he and Luke Cage go at it.
Maybe Mr. Perfect and a bunch of other wrestlers show up as the West Texas Rednecks, and they're like, "Oh, there's way too much R&B and rap music in this here Harlem. We've come to bring country."
Rap is crap.
You do realize that a significant portion of the people watching would then suddenly start cheering for the West Texas Rednecks,
as
right?
they did in World Championship Wrestling. Everyone take a drink.
Yes, they did.
All right.
That was so horribly.
Yeah.
Horribly. How are you that tone deaf to your audience?
2 words: Vince Russo, bro. Anyway, all right.
Yeah,
point.
So.
All right. So speaking of bros, Ronnie Adams,
Yeah.
villains.
What about him?
Just I want to move on. I want to make sure there was nothing that you haven't said about the villains.
No, I just think I think Bushmaster has been my favorite villain so far. I mean, tops is D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. There's no better villain than Kingpin in these shows.
Can we say Bushmaster is
beyond that?
Can we say that Bushmaster is top 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe villains of all time, or just
Absolutely.
TV? Or okay,
Absolutely.
Hang on. Let me think.
well, Robert Redford, Thanos, Loki, who's after those are always in the top 3.
Michael Keaton
Michael Keaton.
Vulture,
as Vulture. He was incredible as Vulture.
He's the best part about that movie.
Kingpin. D'Onofrio was Kingpin, so that's 5. Okay, so Bushmaster 6.
So yeah, he's up there. He's in the top 10. We'll say that of all time because I really thoroughly enjoyed him as the villain in this. What is the actress's name that plays Mariah?
Alfred Woodard.
Yeah, she did incredible this season of coming unhinged, and just being crazy Mariah. So I really enjoyed the villains this time around.
Mark, can I ask you a question about the villains in this? This pertains specifically to Mariah, and has to do with my sincere lack of logical consistency within this show. How is it that Mariah Dillard, untrained in the use of firearms, educated, is somehow a better shot than every cop on screen?
The cops all went to Stormtrooper school.
Seriously, none of the cops hit anything they shoot at. Mariah picks up a military-grade shotgun that she doesn't hold right and can't shoot accurately, and somehow manages to mow down 3 of...
I have an answer. Mariah's a Jedi. Let's talk about Luke Cage.
That is not an answer.
Sure it is. Okay.
I mean, it's an answer. It's not a good one.
It's not. No, it's so bad it doesn't even qualify as an answer.
Well, okay.
You are now Homer Simpson sitting on the couch going, exception that proves the rule.
A wizard did it?
Nope.
All right.
Try again.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Moving on. Luke Cage. So
you're conceding the point, right?
I don't care enough to discuss this further.
I am keeping track, just so you know. Great.
Bring it to my... We're an hour and 12 minutes into this podcast. Let's please talk about the star of the goddamn show, Luke Cage.
He's there. No. If we want to talk about the guy who actually is the star and steals the show, can we just lament the loss of Reggie Cathy?
Yep, another character from The Wire, by the way. Another actor who played in The Wire. Also, I believe The Corner and Oz, as a matter of fact.
Yes, he was Burns.
He's as Luke Cage's father, James Lucas.
A really great supporting stuff from House of Cards too.
I've never watched House of Cards. It's on the list, but I just haven't had time to watch it. His portrayal of Luke Cage's father. I didn't read too much about the season. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to know too much of what was going to happen, and I honestly thought that his father was going to be one of the main villains of the show, and especially the way that he's portrayed in the first couple of episodes. But first of all, Reggie Cathy is just amazing on screen. You know, that troupe of New York actors that's been in a lot of these shows like The Wire and Oz, whatever, they really are phenomenal. Wendell Pierce is another one who's getting a lot of work now, but was part of that troupe. They're just amazing actors. But his portrayal as James Lucas, and his stuff from the pulpit and everything, and the arguments with when he calls, when he's correcting Luke Cage and everything, and calling him by his God-given name and all of that. You actually as a viewer, I actually felt smaller watching. I was like, oh, don't yell at me.
Honestly, my favorite thing he does is after his church gets shot up, he punches out one of the gunmen.
Yeah.
And he's just beating this man, and Luke Cage comes in and stops him like, Dad, stop, that's enough. It's like, he shot you. Dad, I'm bulletproof. They just bounce off me. Don't matter. Can't be shooting my baby.
He's so good.
Well, and the fact that he looks at Luke Cage and says, basically gives him that don't give me that tone, or don't use that tone of voice, and he's like, just because you bulletproof doesn't mean I can't break my foot off in you. And I was like, oh, he can. I believe it. And so he's
when he yells at him about his language, like the first time they meet in the park.
sorry, sir.
Oh, bullshit! Watch your mouth.
Yeah, he has
I said sweet Christmas. Actually, yes.
He has a commanding performance, and some of the reviews said that he steals the entire show. I don't think I feel like that award goes to Alfred Woodard. But he's a close second.
He is. He's very close to it. He I I think for me, Alfred, she doesn't steal the whole show. To me, that was the gentleman who played Bushmaster. Every time he was on screen, I paid attention. Every time she was on screen, I paid attention, but it wasn't as closely as him. But she was. I mean, the acting in this season, we all have to agree, has been absolutely on point. On point,
with one or two exceptions, yes.
And just out of morbid curiosity, who are the exceptions?
Again, I thought Theo Rossi was very uneven, and I had a lot of goodwill for that guy. Theo Rossi's been in some stuff that I've really enjoyed, and he burned a lot of that over the course of this season for me.
Simone Missick gives a lot of weird faces. Like and that's the thing, is I don't think that's her fault. She's giving the best performance that I think she can, and she's a fine enough, serviceable actress. Some of the direction with her, and some of the editing with her scenes, where all she does is she's just kind of looking askance and her mouth agape. She does that look, and she does it a lot throughout the series, and it's like, that's not really working for you. I'm getting the sense you're not comfortable with English. Not that you're, in any way thoughtful or, having an issue with what's happening. It seems like you've just been stunned by a blaster. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah, she does kind of the thing with faces that, I said Michael B. Jordan does. He's got more. He's
I know
got
exactly
more
what you're
than
talking
3,
about.
But they only ever ask him for 3.
Rosario Dawson is now probably about a 5 or a 6 on the Adrian scale for worst wife/girlfriend ever. By the way, she was just for the short time that she was in it, she was just a nag. And then at the very end, when Luke Cage tells her to go home, I actually cheered. I was like, good.
I was really disappointed in her character this time around.
For a woman who's stitching up superheroes, I was like, wow, you've become a nag.
Yeah.
You're at least a 5 or a 6 on the Adrian scale.
Yeah, she was edging towards, was it Sean Has, the January Jones from Mad Men, or Skylar White from Breaking Bad?
Well,
both those two are just like the shrillest, most unlikable wives ever in television history.
Well, I was going to say, only surpassed by the worst wife in the history of movies, Adrian Balboa.
From Rocky?
Yes.
Yeah, she really was.
She's just terrible. The only one sad that she died is Rocky.
Come on, Paulie was torn up about it.
Yeah. He moved on a lot. He's moved on a lot more so than Rocky has, as portrayed by the last 2 films.
In the last one, when he's dead?
The last 2 films he's in. In any case,
he was dead in Creed, wasn't he?
I don't remember him. I don't think he was in Creed. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
if he was dead,
I think he was dead.
Dead in Creed.
He was in Rocky Balboa, but I believe for Creed he's dead, and that's part of Rocky's disenchantment with life, is that literally all of his family and friends are dead.
Oh God, that's like a Jake Roberts moment. All my friends are dead.
Then Michael B. Jordan gets to stand in front of him and put on a mildly pouty face and go, "I'm right here. Pay attention to me, damn it."
And for more of these thoughts, you can hear Robert Winfrey review Creed 2 later this year on Damn You Hollywood.
Absolutely cannot. You will not hear me review Creed 2.
I'll do it. It's blood in the water, I'll do it.
Luke Cage, everybody. Let's talk about his arc throughout this season, for fuck's sake.
Mediocre morality play.
So, here's a guy who just wanted to get on with his life. And he has power thrust upon him. And so the whole first season was about him owning that power and doing something with it. The second season, he does something with it, but then there's all these questions about, are you doing the right thing with it? Just doing something isn't enough. Where, if you're going to shoot the gun, which direction are you going to shoot it in? How are you going to use the gun? That really becomes the question that he has to wrestle with. And at the end, mostly to fuck the daughter, Mariah leaves him the club, and he becomes the king of...
And he proceeds to literally fall into the most obvious morality trap in existence.
Well, that's the thing,
Somehow, just actually putting it on screen isn't enough. You actually have to have Alfre Woodard narrate it. Just in case the visual cues aren't subtle enough for the audience here. No, literally, I am trying to corrupt him from beyond the grave.
Well,
my vengeance will be posthumous, but it will be mighty.
I have to say this. The scene in the barbershop that precedes that, where...
Much better.
Yeah, and his confrontation with DW, I had to watch... Yeah, I watched that twice. I actually rewound it and watched it again because, partially because I missed a beat and I was like, "Wait, why is DW yelling at him?" And I didn't connect it until I heard DW say, "If you're the boss of crime, then you're a crime boss. Stop trying to weasel your way out of this." But, Luke is saying, "I'm going to sit down at the table with all these crime bosses, and and Harlem is my territory. And while I am not necessarily a crime boss. I'm not asking people to pay protection money. I'm not into rackets. I'm not robbing people, and I'm not dealing drugs. I am, however, going to acknowledge that these other crime families exist, and as long as they're willing to stay the fuck out of Harlem, I'm going to let them continue to do so." And DW's like, that's morally repugnant. And if you're going to do that, you can't stay in the barbershop anymore. This is sort of a hall of justice, and you've just become a bad guy, whatever your ridiculous reasons are. And I love that about that scene. I love that about that character, who up to that point had just been selling the T-shirts and whatever, but he was kind of the conscience of Luke Cage.
He was more comic relief than conscience.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of looked at him as a Jiminy Cricket type. And then again, when Luke, for his, for thinking he's doing the right thing, that he has to be the wall between Harlem and the rest of the world, and he's like, but that's not what you're doing. I thought it was one of the strongest parts of the season, but overall, I liked. The first season. Let me also say this, and I'll let you guys chime in here. One of the things that I liked about the second season versus the first, and why I thought it was a superior season than the first, is the first was very much entrenched in the social justice issues of the day. And granted, it was only a year or two ago, but still, we had just had the Trayvon Martin thing. The Black Hoodie became,
and now there's a stupid documentary coming out about it.
I know. Let's not get sidetracked. But we had just had the Trayvon Martin thing.
About this crap.
The Black Hoodie, had become emblematic of racial issues and the discordance between black folks and the cops. We had had, and I don't want to get into the right or wrong of these situations. I'm not debating them right this second. They existed. I'm going to talk about them. They bled into Luke Cage. You had the situation where the one guy was allegedly having a heart attack, and the cops were on top of him, and he died. And you had the thing in Missouri. You had all of these. You had all of these issues, that led to the Black Lives Matter. That all comes out in the first season of Luke Cage. It was very much a social justice show, as it was intended to be. This season
was another one of my major gripes with it, by the way.
This season seemed to have dropped all that, and it may.
Thankfully, especially after the crap from Jessica Jones season 2.
Yeah, well, people can listen to that in the archives on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network, on Spreaker, or wherever you download podcasts. Anyway,
you're the best shill man tonight.
I'm the best shill man every night. It's the one thing I do well. But
come on, you're a good husband and father.
Thank you. I meant
apart from the abusive movies you show your children.
I meant on the podcast, but thank you. I think anyway.
Make it awkward.
What I like about this season is not only did they drop all that in favor of stronger storytelling, but they also made Luke Cage, the bulletproof hoodie-wearing superhero, black superhero, extremely vulnerable. Within 2 or 3 episodes, he gets his ass kicked by Bushmaster, and it's made public. Everyone knows about it, and it's like, how do you tear down a guy who's bulletproof? By tearing down his image. And I thought that was great. Like, that's his weakness. It isn't that it isn't anything physical. It isn't like kryptonite. It's his image. It's what he represents to the community. And I thought all of that was great. Ronnie Adams, Luke Cage, go.
What can you say that hasn't already been said? Literally, I think Mike Coulter does a great job as Luke Cage as a character. I'm just glad to see him fighting crime and not so much fighting the issues of the day. Does that make sense? It's kind of like what you all said.
Well, I would.
Thankfully, they dropped.
If I had to rank them, fighting crime, fighting the issues of the day, fighting mystical ninjas.
Okay, yeah, we can say that because I actually enjoyed the Defenders. But
to be fair, there are enjoyable parts of the Defenders. It's just you have to really work to get through to the part to them.
There was an enjoyable episode or two, sure.
Well, I feel like you all switched roles on this.
You were saying
no. He and I listen to our review of the Defenders. He and I have basically the same perspective.
Okay, that's one I haven't listened to yet. But because
if you haven't heard us shit on the Defenders, you can hear.
Hang on. There's a significant difference between constructed, reasonable criticism and blanket crapping on something. See, we had reasoned criticism of Iron Fist, whereas everyone else just shamelessly crapped on it.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Because how dare you make a white billionaire a protagonist in 2017?
What a rant we went on with Iron Fist as far as the critics. It was like
I did the same thing. If you all remember,
yes.
I want to be fair. Hang on.
On that review, I think we spent 20 minutes discussing the actual show and 40 minutes to an hour just ripping apart the criticisms.
Now, in fairness, and I was very recently made aware of this by another guy I do a podcast with, Jeff. When it came to Iron Fist Season 1, the pre-screeners were only given the first 6 episodes to write up their reviews on. And put purely within that context, some of their stuff makes a bit more sense. I mean, we actually did address this a little bit, but it was still just some of the worst critical analysis I've read of. Well, because there's problems with that show. You don't need to invent them.
The criticisms fell into 2 categories. One was valid, one was invalid. The invalid one was the ones that only dealt with whitewashing.
Oh yeah, we don't like
the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean,
how dare you make this clearly Asian character white? Never mind that he's been white since his inception in the
in the comic book, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Ronnie. All right, we are somehow or other we got to reviewing Iron Fist for no good reason. Let's get back to Luke Cage. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I have a segue for that. I have a segue.
No, we're gonna get to the Heroes for Hire stuff, but not yet. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I think he does a good job. I think I don't know. There's not much I can't say about him. I mean, as far as being Luke Cage, he does great. He does fine. He unfortunately has been out. His villains have been outshining him, and his dad has been outshining him as far as acting goes. But there's not so much you can do with a character who's bulletproof and super strong. Is there much depth to this? Maybe, I don't know. Sure. But he does well. I mean, I have no problems with him as far as that goes. Maybe you all can shine a little light on, be a little more eloquent in what you have to say about him. But I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I'm happy with him. I don't see anything wrong with how he plays the character and where the character's going with him.
Did you feel like, devoid of the social justice stuff, his character arc was stronger this season, or did you feel like...
Absolutely.
Okay. I was wondering if you missed the social justice stuff at all.
Oh, no.
No,
This is
the social justice stuff.
You know better than that, Mark.
I do, but people are listening to a podcast, so it's good to talk.
All right.
Yeah.
Social justice is a stupid concept.
I know you, Ronnie. I know what you're thinking right now. We don't need to talk about it on a podcast.
No, please don't audibly put out your thoughts or anything on a podcast.
I'm holding up a picture right now. It completely explains everything.
I've drawn.
Robert Winfrey, Luke Cage, go.
I'm torn here because there's two issues. One is the acting, which is fine. It's not great, but I think that's more a byproduct of the
character.
structure. No, the structure of his narrative for this season, which
Yeah,
is
I would say
superior to the first
his
season.
performance is fine. The writing may be your issue.
Yes. And because, I mean, again, and this is deliberate in the writing, and I don't know whether, again, of all the ripoffs they do, the one that I want to talk about first is the smallest issue, because it's more a deliberate narrative, not narrative trope. There's a structure of storytelling that this falls into that stretches back to, the Greek plays of Sophocles. Sophocles?
Wow.
I might be mistaken about my reference there. Anyway, the point being, if you watch, I believe it's the first episode, you get a voiceover of a sermon that his father does, discussing, light and darkness, finding strength in God versus finding strength in man, what you do with power, etc., 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 etc. And really all they're doing is the old Greek chorus thing where they literally tell you what's going to happen for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, Shakespeare does the same thing in a bunch of his plays. He has some device at the very beginning that, when you look back on it, tells you everything that's going to happen to one degree or another. And so again, as a device, I can't like or dislike it. It's an established device. The question is, how well is it implemented? And given that the story they are at this point expressly trying to tell is the temptation at various times of Luke Cage towards the darkness, towards using his powers for ill rather than for good, that's not a struggle that comes through. And again, I can't throw this on the actor because the actor has demonstrated himself to be capable. This has to fall on the writing. All of his stuff about, will I let him kill Mariah or won't I? No, you have now overused this argument to the point where you are literally wasting everyone's airtime because we all know you're going to. Break his, kill the Bushmaster, break his neck. Come on. I mean, you're taking shots at Man of Steel with the setup, which is stupid and needless. And again, we all kind of know what's gonna happen here. We've established Bushmaster as, and not only has that been established to the audience, it's been established to Luke that this is not a wholly deplorable individual. He is not devoid of goodness and merit and humanity. So he's not going to kill him. More importantly, if you want to put us in a position where it's believable that he might snap, you have to actually set that up with something other than a weird conversation between him and Sugar and DW in the barbershop. If you want to put me in a position where I believe Luke Cage might snap and kill this guy, he needs to be concussed again. Or, Bushmaster needs to kill someone innocent on the way to attacking Mariah that's going to get into his head and trigger him to be more emotional than logical about it. As it stands, that whole bit comes a little bit out of left field and just doesn't quite make sense. I mean, more importantly, if you have the wherewithal to break someone's neck from that point, you should know how to apply a frickin' choke. And actually choke the man out so he can be arrested instead of, failing miserably. I mean, you have super strength. You'd think a modicum of technique would go into this guy's life somewhere. And again, so since we're setting up a morality play in the sense of, is this guy going to go dark? Let's give him reasons to and see how he responds. You get kind of the same thing with Misty at points. Is she going to frame Cockroach or not? And then we opt out of the actual morality of that for another episode and a half by having her find him dead. And then there was just so much, again, that they're clearly trying to write a nuanced look at the struggles of trying to do what's right in a crappy, crappy world. And yet somehow this crappy world is the same one where, we have Tony Stark as a beacon on a hill. But hey, consistency doesn't matter. That it just gets a little bit repetitive in that respect. And again, some of it comes out of left field. I mean, again, Luke thinking about killing Bushmaster, again, not set up properly. Especially like he would not kill him to save Mariah. Like that was utterly ridiculous. He would have killed him to save Misty, but not the setup they used to actually derive narrative tension. Consequently, no narrative tension. What was the other one? I had one, but it'll come back to me. So, again, like the writing as far as that goes and the structure of his arc, I take issue with. The acting, perfectly acceptable.
All right.
And our deliberate ripoff of The Godfather in the closing moments of the season.
So that actually leads me to second to last thing I want to talk about, which is the Heroes for Hire stuff. I have been
so good.
I have been dying for an actual Heroes for Hire show. I was kind of hoping they would dump the Luke Cage and Iron Fist solo shows in favor of doing a Heroes for Hire. But, we got two things which I want to draw attention to. There was the individual Hero for Hire stuff, where first you have Piranha who hires to protect him, which I thought their stuff was great. Just the interactions between Piranha and Luke Cage, I thought were highly entertaining, and I kind of cheered a little bit when he was like, "I want to hire you," and we were finally getting that Hero for Hire moment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the same thing with Mariah, where she briefly hires Luke Cage to protect her from Bushmaster. Which was fun. It was fun to see the whole Hero for Hire thing turned on its head. When a villain is requiring his help. But of course, the main event, the thing that we all want to talk about, the thing we all loved, was when Iron Fist shows up for an episode and they got to actually hang out together and go blow up a Nightshade lab,
A grow house.
I'll let you guys kind of jump in here real quick, but just from a pure fanboy point of view, from a visual aspect, I just thought that stuff was great. And with a season of Iron Fist and the Defenders behind him, the guy playing Iron Fist is fantastic. He was so good as Iron Fist now. He's really come into the character, and I thought they played really well off each other. Ronnie?
Yeah, I agree. I giggled a little when he came in, and I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I would love to see a Power Man Iron Fist show. They have good chemistry together. They and just like you said, he with the two shows, the two seasons behind him, he's doing Finn, whatever his name is doing really well as Danny Rand. So it's exciting to see that, and I definitely, I had that big cheesy fanboy grin on when they were doing their thing together.
I mean, their interactions in Defenders were great.
Yeah.
It really did set up stuff like this that, I mean, I'm with Mark. I wanted them to just go straight to Heroes for Hire after the Defenders was done. I also need to say this. We have now joined Ron Killings with the Road Dog. Ronnie, comics. Who's the Hispanic character we can get to be Conan so we can have the Marvel version of 3 Live Crew?
Oh.
Really, really old TNA reference there.
Very, very old TNA reference, but
everyone
worth it.
Everyone take a terrible drink.
Do you have any Bushmaster rum?
It's supposed to be pretty good rum, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't drink.
I don't either, really. At all, actually.
I know.
Really.
Again, at all.
Yeah.
Never have, never will.
Great, you both sound really fun at parties. Move this on.
Parties suck, man.
I enjoy parties, but
oh my god!
Yeah,
anyway,
listen. You brought up parties. I can't think
there.
of anybody Hispanic in the superhero community, which should set Mark ablaze in his social justice.
Correct. Wonderful. I'm the tree-hugging liberal on this show. Fuck it. Whatever.
Compared to the, I know you're neither a tree hugger nor a liberal, nor a homosexual, nor a communist, though you have levied all of those accusations at me.
Still funny.
Oh, so you're the Ronnie on this show.
Something like that. I am the punching bag for Mark whenever he feels like throwing unfounded accusations at people.
Try being called a racist on a weekly basis.
I am.
That's true. I forgot.
I mean, speaking of my racism, can we talk about the prevalence of concepts in this series, this season?
Are we done with the Heroes for Hire stuff? Because I was going to get into that. That's the last thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay. I loved it. Again, I want them to just do a Heroes for Hire series at this point.
Yeah.
Because, how much more are we going to get out of Luke Cage? We're going to get another season of essentially this, where it's how will he go too far? How far to the dark side will he go? How much moral justification is he going to go through before, he snaps and hurts someone close to him and then sees the light and redeems himself in the end, because that's how these things always go. When having him and Danny do Heroes for Hire as a business at this point is just more interesting than anything they're going to do with either character individually. I mean, having Danny Rand walk around with Luke Cage on the streets of Harlem being the weird white guy that he is much more rife for, comedy and interest than what we're going to get out of either of them in their upcoming individual series.
Anything else? Real quick, just because I don't want to not bring up this character, though I don't have a tremendous amount to say about her. I'll pitch it to you guys. Misty Knight in her one-armedness. Robert?
Bionic arms do not work that way, and here's why.
There we go. Here's our Mr. Wizard portion of the show.
Okay. There are things that you can do better with a bionic arm in theory. Your grip strength is probably increased. This one is very obviously the actress wearing a glove. It's not a terribly convincing prosthetic.
It's really not.
And any theoretical benefit to the mechanics of this end where it meets your body. You cannot lift more when you have a bionic arm because your shoulder joint is still your shoulder joint. All right, you cannot necessarily punch harder because you have a bionic fist. In fact, that's actually more painful because you're jamming whatever they capped off the amputation stump with into the other end of the prosthetic that you actually have attached to it. Now, is whatever you're hitting with harder than your bone? Sure. You're going to cut someone easier, but you are not gifted with exceptional punching power by virtue of having a prosthetic arm.
Ronnie, anything about Misty Knight not having to do with her
I am
arm?
here to kill all of your fun as it pertains to this.
Terrific.
It's my job, man.
I was just kind of going along with the comic book. Hey, she's got a bionic arm that must make her stronger. But
doesn't work that way.
I know it doesn't work that way. Also, a man
nothing in this show works that way.
Strong.
I am. One of the things that I liked about a couple of these shows is that they make an effort to, while they exist within the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this crazy world where a void in space opened up over New York City and an alien army came flying through it and they were fought off by a giant green rage monster, a soldier from the 40s, a god of thunder, and for some reason Tony Stark.
So yes, let's please nitpick on the arm.
Yes, because no, hang on. I don't nitpick Bucky's arm because it's also that is done deliberately out of enhanced material and greater technology than is being used here. And I do take issue with Bucky's on occasion, but his is at least the full arm, not mid-humerus. I think his actually extends into the shoulder blade and part of the chest, if memory serves, from some of his sequences.
I hope.
So it's
our listeners are really enjoying the in-depth analysis that we're giving to the performances and all the elements of the presentation of Luke Cage.
Let's be honest, Mark. They've already turned it off.
As soon as he went into the arm bit. But honestly, I'm letting him do it because I'm trying to find a good picture to put for the show tonight. As soon as I find one, we're moving on. So, more about that arm, sir.
Well, okay, look. The point I was getting at is that one of the things I liked about some of the Netflix series on Marvel was that they took this, again, fantastical world, but were an attempt to show that there were still realistic elements to it. That places in this world were still grounded in reality. And sadly, for some reason, all of these series just get further and further and further away from that premise. And it's not just the magic ninjas, all right? Again, there's a degree of that I'm willing to go along with. This is a crazy world. I can accept, again, mystical cities in other dimensions. I mean, Kunlun and Danny actually mocks a bunch of people for saying, "No, you didn't punch a dragon. Dragons aren't real." Really? You can buy holes in outer space. You can buy a giant green rage monster. You can buy God of Thunder from a different planet. But the dragon is where you draw the line. Which was a hilarious bit from him and actually, again, a great line. But
wouldn't he say the same thing to you about the arm?
No.
Oh, he wouldn't. Seeing how you paid for it.
Because I can, again, in that world, I can accept that a dragon would exist. There are still, unless we have fundamentally altered the biology of humanity.
You have! He's a giant green rage monster.
Sure. Who got that way by being bombarded with gamma radiation, which doesn't actually work that way either.
Right!
But I will go along
that way in this universe. Robert.
I will go along with the giant green rage monster. Did they bombard Misty Knight with gamma rays?
You don't know that they didn't.
Right.
They didn't show me they did. I'm not giving these people credit for that. Look, if you establish that someone is a human absent superpowers, giving them a metal arm does not give them superpowers. The other reason Bucky works is he was experimented on by the Soviets.
I disagree. I not only think she has superpowers, but I think she can shoot lasers from her eyes now.
I mean, that'd still make her a more compelling character than the Hulk, but that's beside the point.
You're an asshole.
How compelling do you need the Hulk to be?
He's not. That's
Hulk
the point.
He only picks on the Hulk because he knows I love him and he hates me. That's why. Speaking
Hulk
of things,
smash.
Thinking of, I'm at this point. I found two pictures.
Hulk doesn't smash. Hulk hides like a little bitch because Thanos kicked his ass.
Whatever. I just saw that, but I saw that meme on Facebook and it pissed me off. Anyway.
What? Wait, no, I have not seen this one. Which one?
Oh, it's a list of like all of Hulk's losses, and it's like, when did Hulk become such a bitch?
It's so true, though.
Only in the Marvel Cinematic. Only in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No, in the comic universe, he's an uninteresting character because all he does is get angrier and angrier and angrier, and then they just, in an effort to diversify for no legitimate reason, they gave his powers to a Korean.
Yeah, they did. All right.
Totally Awesome Hulk is stupid.
I've enjoyed the first two trade paperbacks of that, but look, enough about that. Let's talk turkey here for a moment. We in the closing moments of this show, let's talk about what everyone came here to hear. We've been doing this for an hour and almost 50 minutes here. So the last 10 minutes of this show, let's have the fight that everyone came to hear us discuss. The only podcast you're going to hear on Luke Cage where people are going to have a knockdown, drag-out, Transformers-type fight over whether or not there were too many or not enough concerts in Luke Cage.
Too many. This is not an argument.
Yes, it is.
You have no actual empirical ground to stand on. You're just taking the contrarian point of view.
Okay. No, if I could back away
No,
from
that
this,
would be me by saying just enough.
Can I
wow,
make my...
is your name Wishy or Washy?
Can I make my...
How's that fence sitting on there?
Can I make my serious argument here before you run off at the mouth and shoot it all down? Let me.
You don't have a serious argument, but you can try.
I do. No, I absolutely do, and all
right,
be respectful. Okay.
Okay.
Dang.
I will let you make your point.
Sometimes you have to tell. Sometimes you have to put Robert in his place. He gets a little uppity at times.
Well, I feel like mommy or daddy just smacked mommy at the dinner table right now. So.
I won't convince him of anything, Ronnie. That's the thing. It's like you could say, like, "Oh, you're beating up." You could be like my friend Tom did once. Be like, "Wow, you really beat that guy up." But here's the thing: no matter what I say, no matter what salient points I make, I'm not going to convince Robert otherwise. But
I will acknowledge your salient points as such. I have in the past and will in the future. I am not an irrational person about this.
I have no worries about Robert and how he's going to handle anything.
Apart from his wife.
What?
Apart from life.
Have you met Robert Winfrey's character on these shows, Suicidal Robert?
It's real easy. I was actually that way in real life for a period of about 10 years. It's easy to dredge up for me. Anyway, Mark, you're about to defend the copious amounts of time and money spent on concerts by famous rap stars.
Okay, so first of all, many of the songs in the show, much like on The Wire or on The Shield, a lot of these no, that's only if we bring up wrestling. Take a drink.
No, The Wire and The Shield are coming up.
The point is, the use of music is part of the use of it goes to the narrative. These songs are just using The Wire as an example. There were things that happen in The Wire that are accompanied by a song that further makes the point. So, number one, it's not exactly the use of music, whether live or in the background, is not exactly new to Luke Cage. Okay?
No, it is not.
So, and they're building on an established precedent from the first season, where again most of it took place in the club, but the club plays music. So again, not entirely out of place. Now, your issue with the fact that it's every single episode and it's usually 2 elongated performances, you have to, if you are really critiquing episode by episode, one of the things you'll notice is, yes, they'll do a bit of a focus on the musician, but then they're cutting to something else. Then the music becomes background. Okay, and
then they cut back to the musician.
They do,
for another 30 seconds.
There's something to be said for cutting things, for directing and editing a scene artistically. You don't want things to be static. You don't want them to be bland. You know, any monkey can get behind a camera and shoot something. It actually takes a talented artist to make it interesting on screen. Just because it's not interesting to you doesn't mean it's not interesting. Number one. Number two, again, a lot of the performances throughout Luke Cage, and I noticed this more so with Season 2 than with Season 1, is they spent less time focusing on the artist. I will grant you, Hail to the Chief, okay? That goes on forever before they get anywhere. And a lot of Season 1 is focused way too much on just the singular performance and not on what it's supposed to be representing in the scene or in the episode. I was looking for it because I knew I was going to have this argument with you. Emphatically disagree that they do that in Season 2. They show you the artist because why be in the episode if they're not, given the precedent set in the first season, and then they're off somewhere else. And sure, they dribble back a little bit and then they come out again. Again, I'm not going to knock the individual directors of these episodes for how they shot those scenes. None of them are static. That would be incompetent. None of them are boring. None of them are so long that it takes you out of the episode itself. It's all woven together. It's all tightly knitted fabric. So again, not enough concerts, too many concerts. You're talking about maybe 1 or 2 times they focus on the artist in the episode, and then they're off doing other things. And every single one of those things is fluid and dynamic. I don't understand what the problem is unless you have attention deficit disorder.
I don't have ADD.
No, certainly not.
Okay. I have specific gripes this time as opposed to necessarily the kind of generalized ones I did in the first one.
He doesn't like reggae.
No, I don't, but that's not the point. The point is that could have been the music that I enjoy the most, and I still would have thought it was the same. It had the same structural flaws. The fact that this is not music I enjoy listening to necessarily is utterly immaterial.
Okay.
All right. Exhibit 1. I forget which episode. I should have written these down.
I had the wiki up. Do you want me to bring it up again?
I've got it up, but that's not going to tell me what I want to know.
Is it the fat black guy? Because he's awesome in this, and I could afford him perform in every episode.
But the one who does that really bad version of Thrill is gone?
You suck in every language. That's amazing.
No.
No, I did not enjoy that.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us on TV Party
Hang
tonight.
on, let me actually... No, look, you want me to make a point, let me make the point. His performance earlier in that episode, which was of a different song, I seem to recall.
It's I put a spell on you.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Better. I am not knocking him as a guitarist or as a singer necessarily. But I was not terribly familiar with this song, and something that Sean Comer put up about this song in particular struck me when it came up. So I left that running in the background because I knew this was going to take forever. Muted it, found some of B.B. King's versions of that same song, listened to those, decided that, yeah, there are some really, really talented jazz guitarists who should not ever try to replicate what that man did. Closed that, went back to Luke Cage, unmuted it, skipped ahead 30 seconds, and finally got back to the episode.
Chris Stone, Kingfish, whatever the hell his last name is phenomenal.
I'm not knocking him I am not familiar enough with his work. This is about how it flows with the structure of the television show, not about how good or bad he is as an artist.
Okay. You have very specific points. Go on.
Yes, that one's one of them. There was... which one was it near the end? Not the actual...
well, this KRS one's in the second to last episode.
Okay, that one. Yeah, that one then. Because Mariah actually gives the reason we're stuck listening to a concert while getting nothing but crowd shots. We paid for a legend, we might as well enjoy it. I feel like that was a production note that they just wrote into dialogue.
Not for nothing, but that is KRS-One. I mean, he is a legend.
I don't know who that is. I have no context for who he is as a performer.
He's a rapper that's been around for so long. He was an adult when I was a child, okay? This guy's like 100 years old. He's one of the kings of New York rap.
Okay. I accept that you understand the context for this better than I do. Again, and let me be clear, this could be my favorite genre of music, and I would still have the same gripe. I might enjoy it more, but that doesn't actually mean the structure is sound. It means I enjoyed it more.
God, I hope every episode of The Punisher features a country artist.
You know I'm not the biggest fan of country, right?
It doesn't matter.
And really, they wouldn't, because that show is, more soundly produced.
But nope, country. So to the intern listening to this, I don't know how far into the middle of Punisher you're shooting, but more country music, please.
Now, and again, let me be clear. There are ways that this is used, that the music in this season is used as an enhancer rather than as a means of dragging down an episode. The music that plays as Luke Cage and Danny Rand bust up a grow house. Fine. Good. How it's supposed to be used. Luke Cage walking down the street, listening to music in his headphones, and letting that soak into the ambiance and the help establish the atmosphere you're creating. Good. Great. How it's supposed to be used. Pausing this was actually the Heroes for Hire episode, now that I think about it, where... Wait, is that it? 'Cause that one has Jadakiss, right?
I'd have to look.
I think that's it. So we go through this, again, somewhat uneven bits of episode where we can't decide if we're a slightly goofy take on these characters or gritty realism. And then we're going to, we're going to bookend this with 5 minutes of concert where we don't actually cut away that much to anything interesting occurring outside of crowd shots. And can I just say about the very ending of this season, this struck me as so bizarre. First of all, we have the blatant ripoff of The Godfather when Misty walks out of the office and Luke is talking with Sugar, and then we cut back and forth in the slow closing of the door. Again, blatant ripoff of The Godfather. And then we get, a 3-minute rap concert about Luke Cage, which is fine. Again, he is, and I get that he is a figure within this world, and again, I had no problem with, who was it, Method Man from season 1?
Yeah.
That scene where he does, freestyles over the radio as things are actually happening, I was okay with that. That didn't bother me. But this one, we get not only this, again, that weirdness, but, man, everybody's, the entire structure of that closing bit from season 2 feels like David Lynch directed it. What the hell is everyone wearing?
Couture.
There's just, okay, here's one that works. Okay, since I want to be, if I'm going to be fair about this, Stephen Marley performing when Bushmaster takes over the club works. That sequence, again, works quite well, all things considered. The previous sequence, when I think it's Mariah is just listening to him rehearse, and is a lot of listening to him rehearse, doesn't work. So, again, there are times when it does work well, and I would agree it's not as bad as it was in season 1. Thankfully, not as egregious. But
I can't necessarily argue. I would have to go individual performance by performance. I'm not going to say 100% of the time it was as tightly woven into the fabric of the narrative as I would have liked it to be. But I think more often I think they have more wins this season than they do losses.
As it pertains specifically to musical performances?
That are woven into the fabric of the narrative, yes.
I'm not sure I'll give you more wins than losses generally. I will definitely give you more wins than season 1.
All right. Ronnie,
now,
you've
again,
heard...
I am not an irrational... So again, anybody, am I irrational about this?
I was gonna look. I'm not gonna choose to fight you on this anymore. I think we've after 3 rounds of this, we're both sufficiently bloodied. Time has passed. We're done here. I'm gonna throw it to Ronnie
until season 3, when we get an episode that is literally just Luke Cage at a Drake concert. Not even investigating, literally just blowing off steam.
That's how I heard it starts next season. So
I'm pitching right now. Luke Cage the musical.
You'd have to recast half the.
Ronnie, you've heard 2 passionate arguments here. You want to weigh in on your thoughts, and then we'll close out.
Of the concerts, not really, because I'm afraid of my face being eaten.
No, go. No, I'm actually doing. You feel free to speak, sir. This is a safe space.
Oh, shut up! This is not a safe space, but I will let you say your piece. Again, I am not irrational about this.
I don't mind them. I think they fit in well. Sometimes they tend, I hear the argument that maybe they drag on a little bit, but I think it's because it reminds me of the old detective noir films, where they walk into a club, much like Harlem's Paradise, and there's somebody singing on stage. And they always, in these old films, they always had to have, one number from a singer. You always heard somebody sing a song in these old films, and that's kind of what it puts me in the mind of. You go into this club and everybody's drinking martinis and talking, and there's somebody performing in the back. So, whether it's Bogey or whoever, it just kind of put me in the mind of that, and that's why I enjoy it.
Okay, real quick, I need to say this now. I figured out who the villain of Season 3 is going to be for Luke Cage the Musical. Marvel supervillain, the Hypno Hustler.
Oh yeah.
I need to put this out on Twitter.
He's terrible.
The Hypno Hustler is a fictional character, a comic book supervillain in the Marvel Comics universe, created by Bill Mantlo and Frank Springer. The character first appeared in the Spectacular Spider-Man number 24. The character has received negative reviews as a supervillain and Spider-Man villain due to his outdated camp factor. I need the Hypno Hustler in season 3 of Luke Cage. Please make this happen.
He'll fit. They can sell him to DC. He'll fit right in for season 5 of Gotham, or whatever season of Arrow we're on, or Krypton.
That's great. He's a Marvel villain, though.
I'm just saying they could. Yeah, again, I did preface that with that they can sell him too.
Oh, sorry. All right. So I went to onlinepianist.com, and these are the top 5 superheroes and supervillains with musical powers you didn't know about. Number 1, the Hypno Hustler, who is my vote for season 3, Luke Cage the musical. But there's also Johnny Guitar and Dr. Sax.
Let me preface this. I will find these only acceptable if they get Dwayne Johnson to play them.
Johnny Dune from Justice League America. The Music Meister. Dazzler. Okay. And that's that. All right. So that's a bit that died in the vine.
I will only accept Luke Cage musical if Dazzler is the villain.
You know what?
No, they don't own Dazzler yet.
Yeah, well, I would say if they can get this done. I mean, granted, they just finished season 2 now. They're not going to shoot season 3 till next year. Maybe we can get. You know what, Ronnie? I support this. Let's get 2 villains. Let's get Dazzler and the Hypno Hustler, and let's get Taylor Swift to play Dazzler.
No, your Taylor Swift idea for Dazzler sucks. I'm sorry. I don't mean to burst your bubble.
No, my Taylor Swift Dazzler idea is fantastic. My pitch, Robert, was that they should do a Dazzler character or Dazzler TV show played by Taylor Swift, but basically give her all of Taylor Swift's problems, where it's like she can't get her relationships to work right, and she writes music about her shitty romances. That's what I want Dazzler to be.
He wants it to be so meta that it's not funny.
So you want it to be another X-Men movie?
All right, so.
I mean, really, if you're just trying to make Jeremy Lambert happy, you've succeeded.
I think he would support a Taylor Swift Dazzler. All right.
Dude, he is
Sunspot.
a huge Taylor Swift fan. Are you not aware of this?
Yes, I am aware. I've used to listen to his podcast. Go ahead,
Sunspot
Ronnie.
can be your Conan. I just remembered he's Hispanic.
Okay.
All right. I've said all I need to say about Luke Cage.
Dying on the vine.
It's risen to probably my most favorite Marvel TV series of all season of all time, as far as television goes. It's fantastic. I enjoyed every minute of it. There wasn't to me, as much as we've talked about some of the lesser parts of the show, it's still, I think, the most superior of all of the Marvel TV shows, most consistently entertaining. I can't wait for Luke Cage the musical season 3 featuring Hypno Hustler and Taylor Swift Dazzler. Ronnie Adams, your final thoughts.
I hate you for putting that out there into the universe.
Why? Yeah, it exists now. I shouldn't have said anything. I was trying to make a joke, and I've sucked at jokes,
and look,
apparently.
some poor intern is going to hear this and then reference it jokingly to someone who actually has decision-making power, and they're going to go, "Oh my God, I just had the best idea."
Luke Cage the musical.
I mean, again, if you manage to pull that off, I can't actually complain about the number of concerts you have in your show at that point. So,
well, do you hear me? Netflix, Marvel, whatever other television company worked on this. Luke Cage the musical just to fuck Robert Winfrey. All right.
Now, at that point, I can critique the quality of the music.
Terrific. Go ahead, Ronnie Adams of the Screaming Boy podcast.
What am I doing now?
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. This season has really boosted, given it the boost into, being my favorite, one of my favorite shows currently exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Netflix Marvel Universe. So I enjoyed this entire season. I really did. I kind of went into it guns blazing first season, and was kind of I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really liked it, but I was kind of taken aback by the as we said, the social justice, all that good stuff. Which I don't know why, because I kind of knew it was going to happen anyway. But I think one of the main reasons I've thoroughly enjoyed this season is Bushmaster. I think he's great. I think he's an amazing addition to the villains. Definitely, like as we said earlier, top 10 for me. So overall, thumbs up. Give it a watch. I enjoyed it immensely.
Robert, you're up. I figured he'd know his cue. Winfrey, you're up.
Again, in terms of overall quality, again, top 3. Easily. Certainly, yeah, again, I think I had it second overall. In terms of my enjoyment, I don't know. I wish I could really put my finger on what it was about this that didn't really connect with me.
Oh, I know.
Oh, look, your claims of racism will not be tolerated at this moment.
You said it, not me. All right, folks, thank you for tuning into TV Party tonight on our coverage of Luke Cage Season 2, the preface to Luke Cage the Musical Season 3. Coming to a Netflix near you. If you've listened to
on
this...
a serious note, if they do a musical Season 3, I'm not reviewing it.
Yeah, you are.
No, won't watch it, won't review it.
Then you
on the water, I'll do it.
Then it's in your contract.
You and I both know I don't have a contract.
What did I sign?
All right, so
that was your life away.
Don't worry about it, Ronnie. Just
okay.
It's all explained in the fine print. That's written in Chinese.
I trust you, Mark.
All right, so if you're looking for more content featuring Luke Cage here on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network,
Luke's, good day, sir.
We covered Luke Cage Volume 1, Scenes of the Father. 25% less of me beating up on Ronnie in that episode than in our previous source material. Just want everyone to know that.
I think we just kind of turned our attention, both of us, to Jesse.
Yeah. Tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, it's July 4th. It's Independence Day. Today for barbecues, firecrackers, and Kid Rock. He is the American badass. He's the most American musician out there. So we're going to look back at his last album from 2017, Sweet Southern Sugar. That's how we're going to celebrate our independence here in America on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network on the Metal Hammer of Doom. And
I don't know how you went from the R&B and reggae stylings of Luke Cage Season 2 to Kid Rock.
I just explained
and
it.
I don't mean... No. I don't mean as a segue. I mean, I don't know how that didn't cause your head to explode.
I'm talented. So, like I said, it's Independence Day. It's America. #America. So, therefore, the American badass must be dealt with. Kid Rock. You can check out the Metal Hammer of Doom Extras, where we deconstructed Ba with the Ba. And right now, we've got up our deconstruction of the actual American Badass song. And eventually, we'll have up the deconstruction of The Greatest Show on Earth by Kid Rock. Ronnie, what did you think of our deconstruction of Ba with the Ba?
Loved it.
Fantastic.
I didn't even have to watch the video. And once again, I will say that video was sponsored by Mountain Dew, Affliction Apparel, and Tap Out. Because that...
Bringing to you the rematch 30 years in the making between Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell in 2018 under the Golden Boy MMA banner.
There it is.
Not a joke. Absolutely not a joke in that line that I just read you. All fact.
And I am not joking about Ba with a Ba, because there was motocross, there were bikinis, there was fire, there was just insanity, and if you're not drinking your Mountain Dew out of your big mouth or your what was it, the Big Slam bottle, and screaming extreme while you're watching this, there's something wrong.
All right. Other things to look forward to here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network this month. Next week, you get to hear the stylings of Robert Winfrey and I argue over stupid minutia again with Ant-Man and the Wasp.
See, it's funny because they're small for so much of the movie.
Preceding that will be source material, Ant-Man Volume 1, Second Chance, man. 50% less picking on Ronnie in that episode, I promise you.
And it's good still, though.
And then on the Metal Hammer of Doom, Jesse Starcher and I will review Skindred's Big Tings. Big Tings happening on the Metal Hammer of Doom that week.
Again, only one of those is a word that can be used in a sentence.
Big Tings, Robert Winfrey. Big Tings.
Not a word.
The source
I
material.
I don't care how much you say it. It's not a word.
Big Tings. The Source Material podcast will review The Incredible Hulk's Planet Savage, which features one of my favorite Hulk stories, The Spy Who Smashed Me. And then on Damn You Hollywood, Robert Winfrey and I will review...
Are you sure that's not a, This Ain't the Hulk? Like one of those Brazzers parodies?
It's not. But I'm proud of you
Sounds
for knowing...
like one.
But I'm proud of you for knowing what porn is. Very good, Robert.
Dude, I'm a Mormon. I'm not dead. I know what it is. I don't watch it. I know what it is.
It's the fact that you knew that it existed and you knew the right title. I'm very proud of you. In any case, The Rock's going to do his best impression of a Die Hard movie with the Skyscraper. We'll review that for you, and then Metal Hammer of Doom. We'll review Lords of Black. On the 24th, myself and Robert Winfrey will review TV Party tonight. Voltron, seasons 5 and 6.
I still don't know why I keep showing up for those.
And if you're missing your on trial for the month of July, fear not. You're not going to get an on trial, but you will get myself and Sean Comer discussing Glow Season 2. And that's all the news.
Continued trend of the showrunner's ability to write harshly unlikable characters and cast and put them in the main role.
So that's all the news that's fit to print here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network. Ronnie Adams, I heard you had a podcast once upon a time.
I did until my computer said it hated me. But we're slowly getting that taken care of. But as of right now, you can go back in our archives on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, and right here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network, and listen to our past shows. There are two shows, I tell you, that are exclusive to the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network, and those are two of our best shows, in my opinion. One of them is called I Will Always Be a Toys R Us Kid, where we talk about the sad decline, demise, and closing of Toys R Us. That is myself, Jesse Starcher, the mandated reporter, Mr. Mark Radulich, and Totally 80s Pat Mullen.
Otherwise known as Pat Moline.
Patrick Moline. When he reviewed the Trail of Galactus. But we had some fun. We talked about our childhood with how Toys R Us impacted our childhood, and how the closing of Toys R Us is impacting us now. And then before that, another RIB exclusive was What's Going On Movie Pass, where we're all Movie Pass card holders, and we enjoy the movies, and we enjoy the Movie Pass until they start changing things every other week. So we talk a lot about that, and that was a really good show as well. As I said, you can, under the Screaming Boy banner, you can go on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeart, and then right here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network. Find us on any sort of social media. Facebook is Screaming Boy Podcast. Twitter is at Screaming Boy PR, and then on the Instagram, it is a Screaming Boy Podcast. Where I will be posting pictures. I have pictures posted from past Comic-Cons, and I will be going to Raleigh SuperCon, where there's all kinds of people to meet. Dave Bautista, Ralph Macchio, William Shatner, Alice Cooper, Mick Foley, all kinds of people there as well as great vendors, artists, and Jim Starlin's going to be there, guys, and as well as Tom King. So it's going to be a great time. I'll be posting pictures from that as well. That is it for me.
You're up
The
again.
end.
Jesus Christ! You'd think Robert Winfrey's never podcasted before.
Huh?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I click this link, and then my schedule comes up on the screen, right? And then everyone can see that?
What? What's happening now?
I'm holding a picture of Robert's schedule and everything he's doing.
Yes,
we'll do.
I have a picture. Does that
Okay, we're doing this
not
bit
explain
again.
everything?
No,
right.
sir. This auditory medium. You have to talk.
That means with your ears.
All right. This last Sunday, there was an episode of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show where we previewed a crappy card, the Tough 27 finale, and we all hope it's the last one. Because ESPN has apparently not picked up The Ultimate Fighter, because why on earth would you? So hopefully it'll be the last one. It's a crappy card. We talked about it for too long. I'll be covering that on Friday in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. Then we previewed UFC 226, which is a good card. So we talked about, again, the preview for that, for Stipe versus Daniel Cormier, Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega. And then Mark's favorite fight is Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis fight.
Woohoo!
Yeah, Mark won't watch. It doesn't matter. So we previewed that whole card. We went over some of the major news, a couple of retirements. A few people went to Bellator. They confirmed Tito versus Chuck 3, and I died inside. Because in all seriousness, what the hell? How many people in any other sport are interested in seeing something relevant 15 years ago? Again, I mean, is anyone clamoring to see the 2003 Los Angeles Lakers against the 2003 San Antonio Spurs in 2018?
Well, maybe if you put it to a musical.
No. That doesn't help. Anything. So we talked a little bit about all of that, and then I will have coverage of that event this Saturday in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. So stop by, say hello. I appreciate it. It's going to be a long couple of days.
All right, folks.
Then hang on. Then this coming Sunday, we will be reviewing both of those events and previewing UFC Fight Night 133. Yes, when the UFC makes its debut in Boise, Idaho. The main event is former heavyweight champion Junior Dos Santos and Blagoy Ivanov, and it's all downhill from there. What do you want me to say, guys?
MMA, it stinks. All right.
At times, it really does. Other times, best thing in the world. Other times, you wonder, why do I bother? So...
Well, I certainly bother everyone
No,
here on the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network. So thank you for tuning into our coverage of Luke Cage Season 2. For Ronnie Adams of the Screaming...
Oh, Lord.
For Robert Winfrey of the 411 MMA Ground and Pound radio show. I am your mandated reporter. I am your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Rattledge. Be well, be safe. Hail to the chief.
Ugh.